The sun was setting over the city, casting a soft golden glow through the large windows of the CEO's penthouse. As he sat in his office, finishing up a mountain of paperwork, his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, walked in, a serious look on her face that was far beyond her years. "Daddy," she began, her voice unwavering, "I've made a decision." The CEO looked up from his papers, startled by the intensity in her tone. His heart softened as he took in her small frame, his little girl, the only family he had left since his wife passed away 2 years ago. The grief had left its mark on him, and though he had tried to keep things together for Lily's sake, it was clear that things were different now. "What's that, sweetheart?" he asked, setting down his pen and giving her his full attention. Lily hesitated for a moment, as though gathering her thoughts, and then spoke with a surprising amount of confidence. "I want Mary to be my new mom." The CEO froze. His mind couldn't quite process what she had just said. Mary, their nanny? The woman who had been with them since Lily was a baby? She was warm, caring, and had been a wonderful presence in their lives. But the thought of her replacing his late wife was something he couldn't bear to consider. He'd never once thought about Mary in that way. "Lily, you know, that's not something we can just decide overnight," he said gently, trying to steer the conversation toward familiar ground. His voice cracked slightly as he spoke, a reminder of just how raw the wound of losing his wife still was. But Lily was insistent, her small hands clenched tightly by her sides. "But I think it's what you need, Daddy. And it's what I need too." The words hung in the air between them, heavier than any silence he'd ever known. His daughter wasn't just asking for a new mother, she was asking for something he wasn't sure he was ready to give. He glanced at Mary, who had been taking care of Lily since the day his wife died. She had been a friend, a confidant, and someone he trusted with his daughter's well-being. But could he trust her to fill a role that he had always seen as sacred, one that belonged to his wife? "I don't think it's that simple," the CEO finally said, his voice strained. "There's a lot to think about." Lily didn't give up easily, though. "I know, Daddy. But I've been thinking about it for a long time. Mary loves us. She takes care of us. She's always there for us. And I know she'll make you happy too." The CEO felt a lump rise in his throat. The weight of his daughter's words hit him harder than he expected. She wasn't just a little girl asking for something simple. She was a child who had been paying attention, watching, and trying to fix the broken pieces of their family in her own way. "Lily, I need more time to think about this," he said softly, his heart heavy with the complexity of it all. But Lily wasn't finished. She had a plan, one that was already set in motion. "I've already talked to Mary," she confessed. "She says she's willing to try. All I need is for you to say yes, and we can all be a family." The CEO stared at her, stunned. His daughter had taken matters into her own hands, creating a future he wasn't ready to face. As much as he wanted to keep her from growing up too fast, this was a reality he couldn't ignore. His little girl was determined, and her world was changing faster than he could catch up. The tension in the room was thick, and the CEO's mind raced. He couldn't deny the connection between Mary and Lily, but was it really the right time to take such a drastic step? Was he even ready to move on from the love he had lost, or was he simply being pushed into a decision that didn't feel right? As the silence stretched on, the CEO knew this was just the beginning. His daughter had opened a door that he wasn't sure he was ready to walk through. But what if walking through it meant finally finding the healing they both needed? The decision he would make next could change everything. And little did he know, Lily's plan was far more intricate than anyone could have ever imagined. The days that followed Lily's unexpected request were clouded with doubt and confusion. The CEO, still reeling from the gravity of his daughter's words, found himself waking up each morning to a new wave of emotional conflict. It wasn't just the idea of Mary becoming a new mother, it was the fear that Lily, in her quiet way, was trying to fix something that didn't feel broken. Each time he looked at Mary, she greeted him with that warm, familiar smile. She was everything Lily needed and more, but the thought of crossing that line, of changing their dynamic, seemed unimaginable. He had known her for years, seen her care for his daughter in ways that filled him with gratitude, but he hadn't ever considered the possibility of romance. To him, she was more of a surrogate than a partner. Yet, Lily's words echoed in his mind constantly. She wasn't just asking for a mother figure, she was asking for a family. She saw Mary as someone who could heal the wounds they both carried, the loneliness in their home, the sadness that lingered after his wife's passing. "Daddy, I really think it's time," Lily had said one night, her eyes wide and serious as she climbed into bed beside him. "Mary's the one." But the CEO didn't know if he was ready for that. There were nights when he found himself pacing around his office, staring out at the city lights, his thoughts spiraling into confusion. His wife had been everything to him. How could he possibly move on from that? And yet, when he saw the way Lily's face lit up around Mary, he couldn't help but wonder if it was time to let go of the past and embrace something new. One evening, as the CEO sat at the dinner table, struggling with his thoughts, he noticed Mary's gaze on him, soft, concerned, but also unsure. They had always shared a quiet understanding, but this was different. Mary was trying to figure out her place in their world, unsure of whether she should push for more or step back. The CEO tried to speak, to voice his feelings, but the words felt heavy, stuck in his throat. He cleared his throat, looking up at Mary, who was placing the dishes on the table. "Mary," he began, his voice faltering, "I don't know what to do. I'm not sure if I'm ready for any of this." She paused, her hands frozen in midair. Her expression softened, as though she understood the unspoken weight of his words. "I don't want to rush you, John," she said quietly, using his first name for the first time in a long while. "I want what's best for Lily. But I also don't want to push you into something you're not ready for. I know you've been through a lot." Her words brought a flicker of relief, but also frustration. The CEO had hoped for clarity, but instead, all he felt was more confusion. How could he make this decision? Was he making it for himself, for Lily, or because he was trying to please her? The more he thought about it, the more he realized how much of this decision wasn't his to make. His daughter had already made up her mind. He could feel it in every conversation they had, every small gesture of affection Lily showed Mary. She was no longer a little girl asking for a new mother, she was a young woman who understood the value of family, and her vision for it was unwavering. But could he let go of the past? Could he accept that Lily's happiness didn't have to come at the cost of his own healing? His mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions, and every time he thought he had a grip on the situation, a new layer of doubt and fear crept in. The next day, as he sat alone in his office, looking at his late wife's picture on the desk, he couldn't shake the thought that perhaps this was exactly what they both needed, change. But would it feel like betrayal to let Mary in? Would it be fair to her, to Lily, to anyone? He looked at the picture one last time and then glanced at the door, where Mary was standing, waiting for him. She had no idea just how close she was to being pulled into a future that was still uncertain. And Lily? Lily was too young to fully understand the complexities of life, but she had already made her choice. She wanted Mary to be her mother, and it was clear she had no intention of waiting for permission. The CEO finally took a deep breath, wiping the sweat from his brow. "What am I supposed to do now?" he whispered to himself. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow across the living room. Mary stood by the window, watching as Lily played outside, her laughter echoing through the air like a song. But today, her heart felt heavy. She had been living in the midst of a quiet storm, unsure of how to navigate the unspoken expectations that hung between her, the CEO, and Lily. Mary had always known this day might come, though she had never imagined it would arrive in this way. Lily had made her feelings known, loudly and clearly. She wanted Mary to be more than a nanny. She wanted her to be a mother, to step into a role that, for so long, had felt unattainable to both of them. And though Mary cared deeply for both father and daughter, she had never once considered what it might mean for her to take on that mantle. The bond between them had been built slowly, over years of shared mornings, evenings, and countless moments of laughter and tears. She had been there for Lily when the CEO had been buried under the weight of his responsibilities. She had been there through the tough times, when Lily's questions about her late mother became too much for the little girl to handle alone. It had been Mary who offered comfort, Mary who reassured her, and Mary who put her own personal life on hold just to make sure Lily never felt alone. But now, everything was different. The decision was no longer in her hands, yet she felt the pressure mounting. Should she embrace this new role, this unexpected opportunity, or should she remain the steady, reliable figure she had always been, careful not to overstep her boundaries? One afternoon, while the CEO was on a conference call, Mary found herself alone in the kitchen, nervously preparing lunch for Lily. The weight of her thoughts hung heavy in the air, and as she chopped vegetables, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting in her life. This wasn't just a casual request from Lily. It was a clear demand, an expectation that she now played an integral part in their family. But could she? Could she really be the stepmother to a girl who had lost so much? As if on cue, Lily came running in, her face lighting up when she saw Mary. "Can we have pasta today? I'm in the mood for something fun." Mary smiled, her heart aching with a mixture of warmth and doubt. She had become so accustomed to being the dependable one, the caretaker. But was that enough? Was that all she was ever meant to be in this family? "Sure, pasta it is," Mary replied, trying to hide the uncertainty in her voice. She moved to gather the ingredients, but Lily's next words stopped her dead in her tracks. "You know, Mary," Lily said casually, "I think Daddy is starting to like you more than just a nanny." Mary's heart skipped a beat, and for the first time, she realized how much weight those words carried. Lily wasn't just talking about her father's affection, she was talking about something far deeper. Lily had recognized the tension, the pull between her father's grief and his growing feelings for Mary. And she wasn't shy about pushing things forward. In her eyes, it was simple. Mary was the perfect person to heal their broken family, to step into a role that had been left vacant for too long. "Lily," Mary began, trying to keep her voice steady, "your father and I are friends. That's all." But the way Lily looked at her, wide-eyed, hopeful, made it clear that this wasn't just about friendship anymore. It was about something else, something bigger. Mary's chest tightened as she realized just how deep this situation had become. What if she truly did become part of this family? What if this wasn't just a temporary arrangement? As the days passed, the tension grew. The CEO seemed to be pulling away, both emotionally and physically, as if he were waiting for something to happen, waiting for Mary to make a move he wasn't ready to acknowledge. Meanwhile, Lily continued her quiet campaign to bring them closer, planting seeds in both of their minds, carefully orchestrating her plan. One evening, when the CEO came home, tired from a long day at the office, he found Mary and Lily sitting together at the dinner table, talking and laughing. There was a warmth in the room that hadn't been there in a long time, and it made his heart ache. He had tried to keep his distance, tried to make sense of his feelings, but the reality was beginning to sink in. His daughter had taken matters into her own hands. It was then that the CEO noticed something new, something he hadn't seen before. He saw Mary, not just as a nanny, but as a woman with her own life, her own desires, and her own place in this world. His heart raced as he realized how close they were becoming. And for the first time, he wondered if perhaps Lily was right. Maybe this was exactly what they both needed, a fresh start, a new family. But the question remained, was he ready to let go of his past and embrace the future? Could he see Mary not as the woman who took care of his daughter, but as the woman who could help him heal, help them heal together? As he watched them share a laugh, his heart grew heavy with uncertainty. The path forward was no longer clear. And neither he nor Mary knew what the future held, but both of them could feel it, a shift, a change, a possibility that could alter their lives forever. Days passed, but the tension in the house seemed to only grow stronger. The CEO couldn't shake the thought of what Lily had said, her calm, deliberate declaration that Mary should be her new mother. He tried to push it from his mind, to focus on work and the small, fleeting moments of peace with Lily. But the more he saw her, the more it became clear that this wasn't just about a child's innocent wish. This was something calculated, something that had been brewing for much longer than he realized. It was a Saturday afternoon when Lily approached him again, this time with a purposeful look on her face. She had been unusually quiet the past few days, but today, there was a new energy in her. As she sat down beside him on the couch, the CEO braced himself. He knew this wasn't going to be an ordinary conversation. "Daddy," Lily began, her voice soft but firm, "I've been thinking about something." The CEO gave her a weary smile, not sure what to expect. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" Lily's eyes locked with his. There was a maturity in her gaze that made him pause. "I think you should ask Mary to marry you." His heart stopped, and the words caught in his throat. "Lily, that's..." "No, Daddy." "It's the only way," Lily interrupted, her voice unwavering. "She's the one who can help us. She can make everything better." The CEO was stunned. "Better," he repeated. "What do you mean by better?" Lily leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a whisper. "She makes you smile, Daddy. You're not sad when she's around. And I can tell you like her more than just a nanny. You're both so good together. I've watched you both. You don't even realize it, but you're already a family." The words stung him, cutting through his carefully constructed walls. He hadn't realized how much Lily had been observing, how much she had internalized. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just a little girl asking for a new mother, it was a young girl trying to fix the pieces of her broken family. She wasn't just wishing for a new stepmother, she was orchestrating a plan, pushing him towards something he wasn't ready for. "Lily, you don't know what you're asking," he said softly, his voice strained. "This is not something we can just decide overnight." But Lily wasn't backing down. "I've thought about it a lot. I want Mary to be my mom. And I know she'll make you happy too. She loves us." Her words were simple, yet they carried the weight of a future he wasn't prepared for. The CEO sat back, his mind spinning. He had spent so much time trying to hold on to the past, trying to preserve the memory of his late wife, that he hadn't noticed how much his life had already changed. He had allowed himself to grow closer to Mary, to trust her with everything. But had he ever considered the possibility of a future with her? For the first time in a long while, the CEO felt completely out of control of his own life. His daughter, the one person he had always tried to protect, had taken matters into her own hands. She had seen something he hadn't, she had seen the potential for a new beginning, a new chapter. And she was forcing him to acknowledge it, whether he was ready or not. Later that evening, as Mary prepared dinner, the CEO found himself standing by the window, staring out into the darkened city. His thoughts were a whirlwind, tangled between his feelings for Mary, his fear of replacing his wife, and his overwhelming desire to do what was best for his daughter. Mary entered the room quietly, as she always did, her presence calming. She placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch gentle but firm. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. He turned to face her, his heart heavy with the weight of the decision he knew he had to make. But how could he make it? How could he go from being a man who had lost everything to being the kind of man who could love again, who could embrace a new future? Was he ready to let go of the past for the sake of his daughter? Could he allow Mary to step into a role that was never meant for anyone else? "I don't know, Mary," he said softly. I don't know if I can do this. Mary looked at him, her expression a mix of understanding and uncertainty. You don't have to make any decisions right now, she said, her voice soothing. I'm here for you. Whatever you need, I'm here. But the CEO could feel the walls closing in on him. Lily's words echoed in his mind, her plan unfolding before him like a roadmap he wasn't sure he was ready to follow. And as much as he wanted to protect her from the complexities of adult emotions, he realized he couldn't shield her forever. She had already made up her mind. Now, it was his turn to face the truth. That night, as he lay in bed, he couldn't help but wonder, was he holding on to the past out of fear? Or was he simply afraid to let his heart move forward? The question lingered in the air, unanswered, as he drifted off to sleep, unsure of what the future held but certain of one thing, his life would never be the same again. The days following his conversation with Lily were filled with tension. The CEO couldn't escape the growing sense of unease that settled over him. The more he tried to distract himself with work, the more he was pulled back into the reality of his home, into the quiet whispers of his daughter's plan, and into the unspoken expectations that lingered between him and Mary. One evening, after another long day at the office, the CEO returned home to find Lily and Mary sitting together on the couch, talking and laughing. There was something so natural about it, something so right, that it made his chest tighten. This was what Lily had wanted, what she had been working toward. A family, all under one roof, without the grief that had haunted them for so long. As he stood in the doorway, he couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. Was he holding them both back? Was his refusal to embrace the possibility of a new family causing more harm than good? "Daddy!" Lily exclaimed when she saw him. She jumped up from the couch and ran over to him, throwing her arms around his waist. "I'm so glad you're home. Mary made my favorite dinner tonight." The CEO smiled faintly, though his heart was heavy. "I'm glad you're both having a good time." Mary stood from the couch and approached him, her eyes full of kindness. "We've been talking, John," she said softly. "Lily and I both know this isn't an easy decision. But we want to make sure we're all moving forward together. And we're willing to be patient with you. Whatever you decide." Her words struck him like a bolt of lightning. Patience. That's what she had been offering all along. Patience while he worked through his grief, while he found the courage to step into a new chapter. It wasn't just about Mary becoming his wife, it was about the whole family, healing together. "I don't know if I'm ready, Mary," the CEO confessed, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know if I can move on. My heart is still so full of her." His words trailed off, the weight of the grief that had been consuming him for years threatening to overtake him. Mary stepped closer, her hand gently resting on his arm. "I understand," she whispered. "I do. But Lily and I have both been waiting for you. And we're not going anywhere. We want you, just as you are. But we can't keep waiting forever." Lily, who had been quietly watching, spoke up with surprising clarity. "Daddy, we're not asking you to forget. We're asking you to be happy again. We don't want you to carry this sadness forever." The CEO looked at his daughter, her words like a punch to the gut. She wasn't asking for a replacement mother, she was asking for something even more precious, healing. For both of them. And he realized, in that moment, that he had been so focused on the past that he had forgotten to live in the present. He had been living in the shadow of his grief, unable to see the people right in front of him who wanted to help him move forward. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I've been so afraid of letting go. But I see now that I've been holding on to something that isn't fair to any of us." Lily wrapped her arms around his waist, her small body pressing against him. "It's okay, Daddy. We just want to be a family again." The CEO looked at Mary, his heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. "I don't know what this is going to look like," he admitted. "But I want to try. I want to try with you both. Mary's eyes softened as she stepped closer, her hand gently cupping his cheek. That's all I've ever wanted, John. For us to try, together. As he stood there, the weight of his emotions pressing down on him, he felt something shift within him. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic change, it was more like the gradual softening of a stone. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel hope. Hope for the future, hope for healing, hope for a new kind of family, even if it looked different than what he had imagined. And though the path forward was still uncertain, he knew one thing for sure, he wasn't alone anymore. They were in this together. The days following the CEO's admission to Mary and Lily were filled with quiet reflection and, strangely enough, an odd sense of peace. It wasn't the kind of peace that came from having everything figured out, it was the kind of peace that arrived after years of wrestling with emotions, after letting go of the impossible hope of turning back time. For the first time in a long while, the CEO found himself smiling more. He and Mary had spent evenings talking long after Lily had gone to bed, sharing stories, fears, and dreams. There was still uncertainty in the air, but it was no longer paralyzing. The bond between them was growing stronger, and the CEO felt something shifting inside him, a realization that maybe he could open his heart again. Maybe he didn't need to be stuck in the past. But just when he thought they were moving forward, something unexpected happened. Lily, with her usual clarity, said something that knocked the CEO off balance once again. One afternoon, as he sat at the kitchen table, flipping through papers, Lily walked in with a determined look on her face. She had been unusually quiet lately, and the CEO could tell something was weighing on her mind. She sat down beside him, her small hands resting on the table, her eyes locked onto his. "Daddy," she began, her voice serious, "I think you should ask Mary to marry you." The CEO froze. He had thought they were in a better place, that they were healing together. But now Lily was pushing again, pushing him towards something he wasn't sure he was ready for. I thought we already talked about this," he said, his voice unsteady. "I don't know if I'm ready for that yet." Lily's gaze didn't waver. "But you love her, don't you?" The question hit him like a jolt of electricity. He had been avoiding that truth for so long, afraid that acknowledging it would somehow betray his late wife. But in that moment, he realized that he didn't need to choose between the love he had lost and the love he could have now. He could hold both in his heart, in different ways. "I do love her," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "But it's not just about love. It's about making sure we're ready." Lily's small hand reached across the table, resting on top of his. "We're ready, Daddy. You've been ready for a long time. You just need to let yourself see it." Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of years. She had been the one to push this whole idea from the start. She had seen something in Mary that the CEO had struggled to recognize, and now it seemed that she was the one who had all the answers. For a moment, the CEO sat there, trying to process it all. The fear, the doubts, the pain of moving on, it was all still there. But there was something else now, too. There was hope. There was the possibility of a future where they could all be happy again, where they could rebuild their family without erasing the past. That evening, as Mary and Lily sat together in the living room, the CEO made a decision. It wasn't a decision he had arrived at lightly, but it was the only one that made sense. He walked into the living room, his heart pounding, and knelt down in front of Mary, taking her hand in his. "Mary," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "I don't know what the future holds, but I want to find out with you. I want to be with you. I want our family to be whole again." Tears welled up in Mary's eyes as she gazed at him, her hand squeezing his. "John, are you sure?" He nodded, his voice steady but filled with raw emotion. "I'm sure. I don't know if we're ready to call it marriage just yet, but I'm ready to take this step with you. I'm ready to try. Together." Lily, who had been sitting quietly nearby, burst into tears of joy. She jumped up from the couch and ran over to them, wrapping her arms around both of them. "I knew it," she said through her tears, her voice full of relief. "I knew you would." The CEO's heart swelled as he embraced both of them, finally allowing himself to feel the joy that had eluded him for so long. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he was truly part of something real, something whole. But just as the CEO began to breathe easier, something unexpected happened. Mary pulled back, her face etched with concern. "John," she said softly, her voice trembling, "there's something I haven't told you." The CEO's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" Mary took a deep breath, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I've been offered a new job, one that would take me far away. I don't want to leave, but it's an incredible opportunity." The news hit the CEO like a punch to the stomach. He had just let himself open up, just allowed himself to believe in this future, and now it was all being thrown into jeopardy. "I don't want to go," Mary continued, her voice filled with anguish. "But I have to make a choice, and it's not just about me anymore. It's about us." The CEO felt as though the ground beneath him was shifting again. But this time, it wasn't fear, it was hope. He realized, in that moment, that he wasn't just rebuilding a family with Mary and Lily. He was learning how to navigate uncertainty, how to make decisions in the face of the unknown. "I don't want you to leave," he said firmly, his voice steady. "But we'll figure this out. Whatever it takes." The family, though uncertain of the future, now stood together, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The road would be difficult, and the decisions would be hard. But for the first time, the CEO understood that this was what moving forward looked like, facing the unexpected with those who mattered most.